Hello and welcome to this EPM Fast Book Summary, where today we're looking at how to win friends and influence people. First published in 1936, this book has sold over 45 million copies worldwide. You probably already know it's an absolute classic book. But what is it about? Well, it's a practical guide to improving how we interact with others. In a nutshell, when dealing with people, we're not dealing with creatures of logic, but rather with creatures of emotion. Thus, we improve our human interactions when we make a mindset shift to put the interests and the emotions of others first. In fact, to quote Dale Carnegie himself, to make friends, influence others, and get them in our corner, it is important to know how to look after their ego. This happens after an important change in our everyday behaviour, which consists of never criticising, being genuinely interested in others, smiling, remembering the first name of the person we're speaking with, making them feel important, never telling them they are wrong, talking about our own mistakes before talking about theirs, motivating, sincerely complimenting, and generally always looking after their self-esteem. So with that, let's jump right into this lesson. So the topics we're going to cover today are broadly split into 4 parts corresponding pretty much exactly with the book. So part 1 is about fundamental techniques in handling people, and there's 3 principles covered in that section. Part 2, 6 ways to make people like you. Part 3, how to win people over to your way of thinking. And finally, part 4, how to be a leader. So in total, there's 30 principles covered in the book. Now, that's a lot of principles, but we're going to cover every single one of them today. So let's jump right in. So part 1, fundamental techniques in handling people. Number 1, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Now, criticism is counterproductive because it puts the other person on the defensive. When you criticize someone, it may make someone resent us. E.g., they may say to themselves, who does he think he is? Or conversely, it might make them try to justify themselves, whereby they say something along the lines of, I did everything that I could, so therefore it wasn't my fault. Now, how did you feel the last time you were criticized by someone? And be honest when you answer that. It's probably likely you didn't feel like correcting your behavior. It's much more likely you just went immediately on the defensive. So instead of criticizing someone, just bite your tongue and use the other strategies that are presented in this book. So number 2, give honest and sincere appreciation. So assuming our basic needs are met, then one of our deepest desires is to feel important. And one way to make people feel appreciated is simply to show them your appreciation. Everyone loves a compliment. Everybody loves a pat on the back. So positive reinforcement is the use of showing repeated appreciation. People feel important and want to do a better job next time when we use this positive reinforcement. Whereas criticism makes us not care about the next time. If someone criticizes, are you really going to want to do a better job for them next time? Probably not. And in terms of using this in the workplace, we could just, if somebody does a good presentation, then why not just simply say, that was a great presentation. But it needs to be sincere, and that's another point worth highlighting, that there is a difference between appreciation and flattery. So basically, appreciation is sincere, whereas flattery is, simply insincere. Number 3, arouse in the other person an eager want. Now, to persuade a person, we first need to see things from their perspective, and this is key, really key, to having influence. Then we can identify reasons why they would want to do something, showing them it's in their best interest to take this course of action by basically highlighting, what's in it for them. And what we're doing is we're essentially making an appeal to a desire that they already have. So maybe they have great ambition, or maybe they want money or better health or youthful looks, whatever it is. We're appealing to something they already want. So as an example, suppose I'm interviewing you for a job and you want the job. You could tell me that you have great qualifications and that you've worked for great companies before and that you're super motivated. But will I hire you? No, probably not, based on this principle, because you haven't really shown me what's in it for me. But now suppose you take a different approach. You tell me that at your previous company you faced exactly the same problems as I face right now, and you tell me that you solved those problems and made the company lots of money. You also tell me that you're chatting with my competitor about a potential role at their company. Now do I want to hire you? Yes, I do want to hire you. And that's because you've shown me what's in it for you. I want to make all the money and I want to stop my competitor from making it. So on to part 2, 6 ways to make people like you. Number 1, become genuinely interested in other people. We'll have more friends by being interested in others than by telling people how great and amazing we are. I mean, that's just common sense. But humans can actually learn a lot from dogs in this respect. So if you think about, a pet dog, they don't do too much, but the one thing they do is they really follow you around and they really love you and they show you this love and this appreciation all of the time. And in return for that, no dog really has to work a day in their lives. It's enough to get this appreciation. And that's because being appreciated and feeling loved is a huge human desire. So turning this, to practical use, you can implement this step by simply just being enthusiastic about others. So for example, if you meet someone, then just greet them warmly. Tell them it's great to see them. If someone tells you that they've just come back from a vacation somewhere, then ask them about it. Show some genuine interest. Number 2, smile. Now, actions speak louder than words, and a smile simply says, I like you, you make me happy, and I'm glad to see you. Now, we often spend a lot of time thinking about what we're going to wear to work or to a social event. But the truth is that people are far more emotionally attuned to the expression we wear on our face than the clothes we wear on our bodies. So, why not make a conscious effort to smile a bit more? Number 3, remember, a person's name is to that person the most important sound in any language. When you forget someone's name, what message do you think it sends to them? It definitely doesn't tell them they're important, right? So when you remember someone's name, it's like paying them a mini compliment. It's an incredibly simple way to make someone feel important. Use their name when you greet them, and continue to use it throughout the conversation. Number 4, be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. Now, people care most about themselves. What they're most interested in is the aspirations that they have, their health, the problems they're facing. And those things they're most interested in, funnily enough, are the things that they most enjoy talking about. So to get someone to like you, you just need to be a good listener, be attentive and ask questions where it's appropriate. Number 5, talk in terms of the other person's interests. So look for the common ground and talk in terms of the other person's interests. Once you've done this, then later you can direct the conversation towards getting what you want. So as an example, let's suppose you're meeting with someone with whom you're at the opposite end of the political spectrum. Should you begin by talking politics? Probably not, as it's just going to quickly escalate and highlight your differences quickly. But maybe you both share a love of good food. So you could start by talking about that. It's going to build rapport, and it's going to put them in a better frame of mind for when you eventually get around to asking them what you came to ask them. Number 6, make the other person feel important, and importantly, do it sincerely. Now, we all want to feel appreciated, to feel like we're doing a good job, to feel like people are happy with us and they like us. William James said, the deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. So to use this principle, find something you genuinely admire about the other person and simply pay them a genuine compliment. So as an example, let's suppose a colleague has given a presentation and you were impressed by it. In this case, you could tell them it was a great presentation and you could tell them you were genuinely impressed. You could also ask them how they managed to carve out the time to create it given all their other commitments. And in doing this, you're doing a number of things. You're paying them a compliment. You're, by inference, acknowledging them as an authority on presentations. And you're giving them a reason to tell you about all the challenges they faced in creating the presentation, etc. And when you take this kind of approach, where you make the other person feel important, it's very hard for them not to like you. So on to part 3, how to win people to your way of thinking. Now, so far, we've looked at how to get people to like you. Now we're going to start thinking about how to win people over to get what you want. So number 1, the only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. Now, arguments are lose-lose. If you lose, you lose, but also if you win, you still lose. In an argument, you have nothing to gain and everything to lose. Now, the reason that you lose, even if you win, is because you've created resentment and the other person will have lost face. And they're probably going to be looking to extract their revenge next time in some way, or at least maybe obstruct you in some way next time. So number 2, show respect for the other person's opinions and never say you're wrong. Now, if you tell someone they're wrong, what's going to happen? Do you think they'll just change their mind and agree with you? No, that's not going to happen. So, to avoid this confrontation, try a different approach. Maybe try something like, yes, I thought that too, and it's probably the right way to go. But what do you think about this approach? How would you feel if we tried it this way? Number 3, if you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. So the next time that you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. This will take the tension out of the air, and the person you're with will be much more likely to have a forgiving attitude towards you. Number 4, begin in a friendly way. If you have to tell someone off, it can be really tempting just to tell them off, tell them what's wrong. And this can make you feel good, but it doesn't make them feel good afterwards. So instead, begin by being friendly and highlight the positives first. So as an example, let's imagine one of your subordinates was giving a presentation to your boss and they really let you down. You're angry, so it's super tempting just to give them a piece of your mind there and then. But that isn't constructive. Wait to cool down, and they're going to be much more receptive to feedback if you start in a friendly way and tell them what you did like about the presentation. Maybe you liked the content, but you just didn't like the delivery, or focus on the positives, and then they're going to be much more receptive to the feedback you're actually giving them. Number 5, get the other person saying yes, yes immediately. So begin a conversation by talking about things you agree upon, and continue to do this throughout the conversation. And the reason for that was because a no can be hard to recover from, and that's why you want to start getting yeses straight away. So as a really simple example, let's say you want a pay rise. You don't just want to ask your boss for a pay rise straight out, because it makes it really easy for them to say no. So instead, think about what you can agree on. Maybe you can agree that you've hit all your targets in the last quarter. Maybe you can agree that you've done something exceptional in the last quarter. And, by using this approach, you're leading him or her on a journey of small incremental yeses to ultimately get what you want. Number 6, let the other person do a great deal of the talking. When someone comes to you with a complaint, don't jump into an argument. Instead, help them to blow off steam by asking questions and probing further into the problem. Keep doing this until they're exhausted, and once they're empty, they'll be much more receptive to whatever way forward you propose. Number 7, let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers. Now, do you enjoy being told what to do? Probably not. So a better approach to win someone over is to lay out all the facts and present your conclusion and then ask for feedback. But the key thing here isn't to just listen to the feedback. You've got to take this feedback and incorporate it into the proposal. And in doing so, they will feel like it's their idea too, and they're going to buy into it more and take more ownership of it. Now, before we go on to number 8, it's worth saying that, as you might have noticed by now, a lot of the principles within the book overlap. But I hope you're getting the general themes around how to interact with others. So number 8, try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. Now, if you don't understand the perspective of another, try putting yourself in their shoes. You can do this by asking yourself, how would I react to this if I were in their shoes? And from that, you can say, how will they then react if I say this? How will they react if I do this? How will they react if I propose this? And if you truly understand another person's motives and desires, then it makes it much easier to get what you want and to make them happy in the process too. Number 9, be sympathetic with the other person's wants and desires. Now, as we've said before, people want to be understood. So show them that you understand their situation. And this is particularly useful in situations where you can't meet their needs. So perhaps a subordinate wants a pay rise and you're just not able to give it to them. So in this case, it's going to really help if you can show them that, as a minimum, you actually understand and can relate to their situation. So some phrases you might use include things like, hey, I understand where you're coming from. And if I was you, I'd feel the same. I really don't blame you for feeling that way. I'm not sure if I wouldn't be demotivated as well. Number 10, appeal to their nobler motives. Now, everyone has 2 reasons to do something, at least according to the book anyway. And one of those reasons sounds good, and the other one is the real reason. Now, if you appeal to the real reason, you'll put people on the defensive because it's not such a pretty reason as the more noble, good-sounding reason. So don't appeal to that. Instead, appeal to the one that sounds good. Now, as an example, when John D. Rockefeller wanted newspaper photographers to stop taking pictures of his children, he appealed to their nobler motives. He didn't say, I don't want these pictures taken. Instead, he said, you know how it is. You've got children yourselves, some of you, and it's not good for youngsters to get too much publicity. Number 11, dramatize your ideas. If we want to grab and hold someone's attention, we have to use dramatization. We can do this through storytelling. They do it on TV shows, radio shows, and obviously in newspapers too. And you should do it too. Now, as an example, if you've been sent into a department to turn it around because it's losing money, you could really bring home the idea of the department losing money, but maybe throwing money on the floor when you're giving your inaugural speech to explain the situation to everyone. That would really grab their attention. Number 12, throw down a challenge. If you want to get people to achieve, then throw down a challenge. And we do that because we want to stimulate people's competitive spirit. So if you wanted to get your team to deliver something on time, you could tell them that whoever completes the most tasks gets to take the team out for lunch or gets a day off or some kind of reward or just gets, stood in front of the rest of the team and praised. And that's reward in itself. So part 4, be a leader. Up to this point, we've learned how to get people to like us. We've learned how to win people over whilst making them feel good. But, sometimes you'll have to tell people they've done something wrong or that something needs to change. So in this section, we'll look at just how to do that. In fact, you can think of this section as being all about how to give feedback. So number 1, begin with praise and honest appreciation. It's always easier to accept criticism after we've had some praise. So with that in mind, if you need to criticize someone, then begin by highlighting some of the positives. Number 2, call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. So, in step 1, you've stated some positives. Now it's time to move on to the actual criticism itself, but don't just blurt it out. Instead, maybe focus on an alternative course of action. So, for example, if one of your team gave a really terrible presentation, you could say, I really appreciate that you put the presentation together. And I'm thinking that if you focused more on this aspect rather than that aspect in the next one, it would go down even better. Number 3, talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. Now, it's easy to hear your faults if the person telling you them is admitting that they're far from perfect. So again, if we go back to our presentation example, we could tell our subordinate that we've made a mistake in not explaining the brief thoroughly enough to them. Maybe we could say that we should have run through the presentation with them before they presented it to everyone. And, in doing that, it's going to make it much easier for them to accept feedback. Number 4, ask questions instead of giving answers. So, this goes back to the fact that we've stated before that nobody likes being told what to do. So to get what you want, you could try using questions rather than telling them. So things like, do you think it would be better to do this? Or do you think the following would work? That kind of thing. Number 5, let the other person save face. Now, if you have to deliver negative feedback, then you always have a choice as to how you do it. And in making that choice, never choose to belittle someone, because it just doesn't achieve anything, either in the short term or the long term. So a simple example here is if you have to tell someone off, do it in private rather than in front of other people or the team. Number 6, praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Now, praise is a free tool that can increase performance. When someone does something right, praise them for it in front of others. That's going to encourage them to raise their game. And the reason for that is because we all crave to feel appreciated. Now, praise can also work to lift underperformers. And basically you do that by praising every improvement that they make to bring them up to the performance of everyone else in the team. Number 7, give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. You can do this if you introduce someone to a group, always talk them up. And that's going to achieve 2 things. Obviously you'll give them the reputation to live up to that they're going to want to live up to, but also you'll make them like you more. Remember, everyone wants to feel appreciated, and by telling them or telling everyone how great they are in front of them, they're going to feel super appreciated. Number 8, use encouragement. Make the fault seem easy to correct. Now, don't overwhelm people such that they feel doomed to failure and they can't rectify the problem. Make the problem seem easy to correct. So if we go back to our presentation example again, we could say, okay, the basics are in place, and that's great, but the style was maybe a little bit off. Have you thought about doing these two things next time to rectify the situation? And, that's massively more constructive than simply telling someone they did a terrible presentation. Number 9, make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. Now, if you want someone to do something, then give them an incentive to do it. So, for example, to get an employee to complete a task, you could tell them how you're entrusting them with this important task that contributes to the overall goals of the organization. And, in that way, they're going to feel empowered, they're going to feel trusted, and they're going to actually want to do the task. So that's it. We've covered lots and lots of topics there. And in summary, this is a fantastic book to read for anyone who has to deal with other people. So basically that means all of us. And this book is going to help you improve your personal and business life by improving your interactions with other people. And because of that, that's why we're scoring this book 10 out of 10, even though, as you'll have spotted, there's lots of overlap between the various points. The book's going to help you, be liked by others, be able to get what you want from others, and it's going to make it much easier for you to deliver negative feedback to others when needed. So that's it for this lesson. Look forward to speaking to you again soon.